Do you guys want to automate your task while working with Google Spreadsheet? Hello, my name is Sumit Shukla, and in this particular video, we'll be talking about how you can use Google Apps Script to automate your task while working with Google Spreadsheets. But before we start this, make sure you check out Scalar's free masterclass on Scalar's event page by industry leading experts. In this particular video, we'll be starting with understanding the Google Apps Script platform, followed by how to declare variables, how to write conditional blocks, how to write custom functions, and finally we'll be talking about how to write loops. At the end of this video, we'll be also creating two applications which will help you to understand how you can bind up all your learnings to automate your task while working with Google Apps Script. But before we start, make sure you have subscribed to our Scalars YouTube channel. Let's get started. So once I have created a folder, we'll go to new and we will launch a new Google Sheet. I'll quickly rename this Google Sheet to Scalar App Script, and then in order to launch a Google App Script, we go to extension, we go to App Script, and you will find out an interface like this. The very first thing that we will do is to rename this. So let's rename this as my first script. Now, by default, you can see that this particular area, which is basically the scripting area, we have a function created. We'll be talking in detail about how to create a function, so we don't need to worry about what is already written in this script. But what you guys need to focus is the name of this particular code file. So this is code.gs. GS stands for Google Script. It is the extension for this file. Now what we will quickly do, we'll first of all understand how to write a comment. In order to write a comment, let's say I need to write a comment above this function. So I'll use 2 forward slashes. This is a comment. Now, if I want to print something, now in Google App Script, we do not have any function to print, but we can check the log. In order to check the log, we will use logger.log, and anything which we will mention in this particular parentheses will be displayed to us in the logs. So I'll say logger.log scalar Sumit, and this has to be terminated by semicolon. I'll save this file, and then you will find out the run button has been activated. So we click on run. We have the execution log displayed over here. So it is running. It will run, like it will take a bit of time to run for the very first time because it is registering yourself to the Google server. So you can see that 10:56 a.m. Execution is started, and we have the log. So the log that we were trying to display in the execution tab, we have over here, which is scalar Sumit, and then execution completed. So everything will be displayed to you between execution started and execution completed. Now, let's understand how to create a custom function or maybe a user defined function. In Google Sheet, you may find out variety of inbuilt functions. For example, if I use the function sum, it will return me the sum of the array. Similarly, we have the function count, and we have variety of functions. But what if I wanted to write my own function which do something based on the logic that I wanted to define? So let's understand this. We'll go to Google App Script, and we will write the term function. In order to define a function, we initiate it by using the keyword function followed by the name of the function. So I wanted to create a function su followed by the input which the function will take. So this function will not take any input. So these parentheses are empty right now. Then what logic you wanted to define with this within this function? So you have to initiate the curly braces, and within this you will mention what logic or maybe what steps this function should follow. So I'm saying this function should return me Sumit Shukla data scientist, and that's it. I do not want this function to do anything else. Just return me Sumit Shukla data scientist. We'll save this function. We'll go to Google Apps Script. We'll write is equal to su parentheses, and we will execute this. Now you can see that Sumit Shukla data scientist is visible to us. Let's try one more time. Su parentheses and run it. By when I say run it, that basically means press enter. That's what running is. Now we can use this function any number of times you want because we have created a user defined function over here. Now let's try to understand some basic operators and how we can declare variables in Google Apps Script. First, let's start with some basic operators. So as any other programming language, here also we have operators like addition, subtraction, multiplication. Let's try to understand. Logger.log, let's say I wanted to add, so 1 plus 1, then logger.log, let's say 1 plus 2 minus 1, logger.log, let's say 3 into 5, then logger.log, let's say 13 divided by 2, finally logger.log, let's say 13% 2. Now these are my arithmetic operators. Let's execute this to understand what they are helping us with. So when I say logger.log 1 plus 1, I'm getting 2. Then I'm getting 2 minus 1 is 1. 5 times 3 is 15. 13 divided by 2 is 6.5. And 13% 2. So percent is a modulus operator. It will return you the remainder, which is 1. Now we have some comparison operators. Let's try to understand this. Before that, we'll create a variable. In order to create a variable in Google Apps Script, we use the keyword var followed by the name of the variable. So let's say I wanted to create a variable a, then semicolon. We have declared the variable. Now I wanted to assign a value to this variable. So I can say a is equal to 12, semicolon. Now this is one of the way to declare a variable, or what you can do, you can just say variable, which is var b is equal to 15. This is another way to declare a variable. Now I wanted to compare. So let's say if I say logger dot log a is greater than b. Now here we are trying to compare a with b. Let's try to execute this. Save, run. We are getting false. Why we are getting false? Because here a is not greater than b. So it is a comparison operator. Similarly, let's check other operators. So a is greater than or equal to b. Then we have a is less than b. Then we have a is less than or equal to b. Then finally we have a is equal to b. Now in Google Apps Script we have 2 times is equal to, which is the equality operator. Equality operator. But there is one more operator which is available to us, which is A equal to B. Now what is the difference between equality and 3 times is equal to? So this is also equality operator. Equality operator. But the difference between the first one and the second one is that here we are trying to compare the values. But in the second one, we will make sure that the values same. Also, the type of the variables are also same. So the type and the value needs to be the same. Similarly, we have not equal to. So in order to declare not equal to, A not equal to B, and we have absolute not equal to also. Logger.log A not equal to B. So this is absolute. Basically, the first one will check whether two values are not equal to. The second one will check the two values are not equal and their type are also not equal. So let's try to execute it. Let's save it and run it. Now here you can see that we are getting all the Boolean output, false, true, and so on. Let's try to now proceed with how to use logical operators. Logical operators. Now logical operators basically means and or. So in order to declare and, we have 2 times ampersand. In order to declare or, we have 2 times pipe operator. For example, if I say logger.log, first condition, A is greater than B and A is not equal to B. Let's say these are my two conditions. So let's check it by running it. Save, run. So A is greater than B. So this is my output. A is greater than B. So here the value for A was 12, B was 15. So A is greater than B. No, false. A is not equal to B. That's true. So this is false and this is true. So the final answer will be false. But if I use a or operator with this, so let's copy this, paste it over here, and instead of and, we use or. Double pipe, save it, run it. Now we are getting a true because this second condition is true while the first one is false. So the or operator returns you true if either of the condition is true. So this is how we can use the logical operators. So let's now understand how we can check the type of a variable or type of a data item. Let's first of all define a variable. A is equal to 12. Variable B is equal to 12.5. Variable C is equal to Sumit. Then variable D is equal to true. Now here we define the Boolean operator true with a small t only, not with capital T. Then variable E is equal to 1E12. Now this is the number written in the scientific format. And what else we can declare? Let's check the data type for all of them. So logger.log type of A. Then semicolon, I'll quickly copy this, paste it for 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of A, we'll have a B, followed by C, followed by D, followed by E. And let's save it to run it. So here we have number, string, Boolean, number. Now in Google Apps Script, we have 3 kinds of data types. Number for all the number formats, a string, and then Boolean. And that's what you can find out over here. For any kind of number, whether it is integer or whether it is float or whether it is scientific, the data type is number. For string, we have a string. For boolean, we have boolean. Now let's understand how to write a conditional block in Google Apps Script. When I say conditional block, that basically means how we can write if, else if, and else in Google Apps Script. So we'll first of all create a simple conditional block, and then we will try to create a full-fledged conditional block which can assign a grade based on the marks. So let's try to understand. First of all, let's declare a variable a with the value 12, and now we will initiate the conditional block with if. Then we have to initiate the condition a is equal to 12. Then we have to initiate the curly brackets. What I want this if conditional block to do, if the condition is true, so I want this conditional block to log great, semicolon. Then we will write else curly brackets logger.log Sumit. Now this is very random conditional block. Let's try to save it and run it. So here I'm getting great because the value of a is actually equal to 12. This is how we write if else. And if you guys want, I can explain it again. We have if, then followed by condition in round brackets. What you want this particular if conditional block to do, if the condition is true, so that I have to mention within these curly brackets, then else, and then again curly brackets, what I want this function to do if the if else block is false. But how to write if, else if, and else? Very simple. If a is greater than let's say 5, then logger.log, I'll say logger.log a. Or let's write a function to assign grades. So I'll create a variable m with the marks as 95. And now we wanted to write a conditional block which can assign the grade. So if your marks m are less than 35, then logger.log, I want it to return me fail or log fail. Then else if your marks are greater than or equal to 35 and your marks are less than 50, then logger.log, I want to log, let's say grade C. Please carefully observe over here. We have written the two conditional blocks, which is two comparison blocks, in two separate round brackets, and then an external round bracket, which basically consists of these two conditions. Now this is how you should write. If I remove this, you will find out error. Now you can see that we are getting red underline. This is because here we are having some error. Again, else if my next condition is m is greater than or equal to 50 and m is less than, let's say, 80, then I wanted to log b. Finally, else I wanted to log a. So now let's save it, execute it. So here we are getting A because the marks that we have assigned to M was 95. How we can convert this conditional block into a user defined function? Very simple. So I wanted to write a function which can take input as marks and can return us whether a person failed or which grade the person obtained. So very easy, let's write down function. Now please remember one thing, if I do not mention this semicolon over here, you will get error, because while you are writing code in Google Scripts, you have to segregate one code block with another using semicolon. So I have to put semicolon over here, then we will write function followed by the name of the function. So here the name of the function is, let's say, M grade. It takes the input as M. Then we will create the scope of this variable, and below this, under this, we are going to mention the conditions. I'll remove this semicolon from here. Now instead of logger, I want this function to return fail. Then similarly over here, return C. Similarly over here, return B. And lastly over here, return A. Now we are done with writing the function. Let's save this. Let's go back to our scalar app script. Let's create a table, marks, grade, and let's add some random marks. So 10, 30, 45, 68, 34, 100, 98, 86, 75. And let's add the function over here, which is mgrade. I think it was mgrade. So mgrade. We will provide this marks as an input, and let's press enter. You can see that we are able to obtain the grade fail. Let's expand this formula, and we are able to get the grades for all the corresponding marks. So this is how we can simply write a function. Now let's try to understand the various data objects in Google Script. So we have two kinds of data objects, and data objects are nothing but your data containers. We have object and we have array. Let's try to understand both object and array. So object are nothing but, if you guys already know about Python, in Python we have dictionaries. In Google App Script, we call them as object. So let's define object. I'll quickly end this code block by using semicolon, and let's create a variable D with an object. This is particularly the empty object, which does not have any value in this particular object. Your object is basically a data, or maybe a data structure, which consists of the data which is in the format of key value pair. And this is very similar to the data objects that you have in Python. We call this data object in Python as dictionary, but here we call it as object. Let's try to add some key value pair. As we do it in Python, we can do it over here also. So I can either say D square bracket A is equal to apple, or the another way of doing this thing is D dot B is equal to bada apple, then D dot C is equal to chota apple. And now if I check logger.log d, I should get a dictionary object. Let's try to save it and run it. Please remember, it is not dictionary, it is object. So here you can see that we have 12 is equal to apple. Now the reason it is 12 is equal to apple is because we have already defined a over here, which was already assigned variable. So in order to overcome this, let's make it in inverted commas. Now let's try it out. And here now you can see we have A apple, C chota apple, B bada apple. Again, they are not ordered. Another data object or data structure is array. Coming back to this particular object, let's say if you want to delete a particular key value pair. So you can just write delete followed by what you are looking to delete. I'm looking to delete d dot a, and let's try to again check the logger, because if I do not check it, let's save it and run it. So I'm getting the same object, but in order to check out the object which is not having the key A, I have to again log it. So logger.log d, save it, run it, and here we have another object which is not having the key A. The another data object in Google App Script is array. Now arrays are very similar to list that we have in Python. Now let's try to create a variable with array A and with some data like A, B, C and D. Let's try to log it, logger.log A, and let's try to save it, then run it. Now here we have an array with elements A, B, C, D. What if I wanted to index? Because here arrays are ordered, which basically means this is index number 0, index number 1, index number 2, index number 3. Again, indexing starts from 0. So if I say logger.log A of 0, or if I say logger.log A of 3. Let's save it and run it to check what's the output. So here we are getting A and D because at 0th index we are having A and at index number 3 we are having D. Now what if I wanted to add a new element in this array? So that is something which you can do using the function push. A dot push, and I wanted to add element E, and then let's again check logger.log A. Let's save it, run it, and here we are getting E. So this is how you can use array. Again, we have not covered all the functions. So in the description section, we will provide you with a link which is having all the functions related to this particular data object, and related to all the data objects, you will find out all the functions which you can play with. Let's proceed with how we can write loops. So in Google App Script, we have two kinds of loop, for and while. This is the same thing which we have in Python also, but the way we write for and while loop in Google App Script is little bit different. Let's try to understand it. So in order to write for loop, we initiate it with the keyword for. Now the keyword for takes 3 inputs. Number 1, the variable that will act as iterator. So it is known as declaration. We have to declare the iterator variable. So I'm declaring the variable I initiated with the value 0. So that is initiator or declaration, followed by condition. Now, when you want this loop to execute, so if a following condition is true, then you want the loop to run. That is where you can declare the condition. So here we have declared the iterator variable followed by the condition. So my condition is I is less than 9 or 10. Then you have to also add the incrementer. So if this condition is true, then you can add or maybe increment the value of I. I is equal to I plus 1. One thing which is very important here, you do not need to add comma but semicolon. So these are the three inputs that your for declaration will take. Number one, initialization. We are initializing the variable, then the condition, and if this condition is true, then increment. We are incrementing the variable. Now, in order to write the condition or maybe the operation that this for loop should do, curly brackets, and then what you want to do. So I just wanted this for loop to log, let's say, Sumit Shukla data scientist, and let's save it and run it. So now you can see that Sumit Shukla data scientist is getting logged or printed for 10 times, because here the iteration started from 0 and went up to 9 times. So went up to I is equal to 9. So 0 to 9 means for 10 iterations. This is how you can write a for loop. How we can write the while loop? In order to write while loop, it is very straightforward. All we have to say is while the condition. So let's declare a variable. Variable a is equal to 0. I'm saying while the value of a is less than 5, then I want to log Sumit Shukla, and I also need to increment the value of a. A is equal to a plus 1. Let's save it and run it. Now here you can see that Sumit is getting printed for 5 times. So this is how you can write a while loop. Now we have covered all the basics of Google App Script. Let's now try to create one particular application which will interact with my Google Sheets, get the data from Google Sheet, and then we'll try to generate some output. Here we'll be trying to get this particular data. So as of now, what we have done, we have written a custom function or user defined function, which we are applying, and we are expanding the function to all the rows. But what if I want Google App Script to take this data and automatically generate all these outputs even without us manually applying the formula for all the rows? So let's try to do this. First of all, I'll clean this sheet. I'll create a column marks, and I'll add some random numbers: 100, 32, 43, 45, 67, 98, 56, 45, 34, 76, 88, and again 99. Now these are the marks that we have. Now I want to generate grades. This is what my expectation is. I'll go to App Script and let's start writing the Google script code or Google script to get the data from this particular sheet, and then we should write the logic on top of the data which we are going to extract, and then this script should also add back the result on this Google Sheet. How we do this? So let's write the function if L, and this function will not take any input because my objective is that this function should automatically fetch the data from my Google Sheets and then return me the grades in this particular column. So this is not going to take an input. This is the scope of this function. Now the very first thing I have to do is to fetch the data from the active sheet. How we can do this? We'll create a variable, and this variable will have the current active sheet. So ws, which is worksheet, is equal to spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet, this one, then dot get sheet by name, and the name of my sheet is sheet 1. Let's rename it to SCALER in small letters. So scalar SCALER, the sheet name is scalar, and we will terminate this particular line of code. So what we are doing over here, we have created a variable ws where we are trying to get the active sheet. So spreadsheet app get active spreadsheet. Now out of all the spreadsheets that are currently open in my browser, we are going to only work with the active spreadsheet. Now remember one thing, that it might be a problem if you are having multiple spreadsheets open simultaneously. So it is always advised that when you are working with Google Apps Script, use only one sheet so that it is not having any kind of issues while you are trying to connect your Google Apps Script with your Google Sheet. Then we are trying to get the sheet that is named by scalar. That is one thing that we have done. So we have obtained the sheet. Now we have reached to this particular sheet. Now my next step is to get this particular data. So let's do that. I'll create another variable, name it as data is equal to ws dot get range a2 colon a dot get value and semicolon. Now here what we are trying to do, I'm trying to get data in the variable declared using the word data, where we are using the function get range. So in this particular sheet, get the range a2 colon a. So a2 means from this particular cell, and we have not defined the limit. So we have not defined the lower limit because I do not know up to which row I am having the data. So I'm saying from A2 all the way up to down, and right now we must be having 1000 active rows. So up to this point, I want all the values and dot get values. So this is how we will get the data. Now, if you wanted to look at how the data has been extracted, simply use logger.log and data. Let's save it and run it. So project requires your permission to access your data. I'll say review permission. I'll say use this account. I'll say advance. I'll say go to my first script. So I'm saying that, okay, this is something which I want to verify, and I'll say allow. Now you can see, okay, so what is the error over here? Okay, here we have the error. It is get values, because we do not need one value, we need series of values. Also, one thing that I have changed in my script is I have deleted all the code that we have previously written in order to make sure that I'm just working with this particular app script and I'm not getting unnecessary output. So let's now check what is there in my data. I'll save it, I'll run it. And here you can see that we have output. Now this particular output is very simple to understand. It is basically nested array. So here we have one particular array, and within this array you have multiple sub array, and each array consists of one value from the cell. So here I was having 100. In this first array I'm having 100, followed by 32, 43 and so on. Now what I have to do, I have to first of all extract the value from this nested array, and then I have to write the logic. Now how we can get or how we can extract a particular value from the nested array? Let's take one general example. Let's create a variable a with some data in nested array format. So let's say 10, comma, 11, comma, 12, comma, and 13. Now here if you closely observe, we have a nested array with elements 10, which is the part of array, 11, which is another part, which is the part of another array, and 13, which is the part of another array. I have just added some extra spaces to let you understand how the nested array looks like. Now my objective is to reach out to this element. So I'll say logger.log. I want a of 0. So when I say a of 0 or a square bracket 0, I'll be able to index this particular element. Let's execute this. And here you can see we are able to extract this particular element, which is nested array, the internal array with the value 10. But I want this value also, 10, as an output. So I'll write a square bracket 0 one more time. Let's execute this. And we are getting the value 10. What if I want 11? So I have to just change this 0 to 1 because this is element number 1. And then I'll get 11. Over here. Now what if I need 12? Just change this 1 to 2. What if I need 13? Change this 2 to 3 and we are done, right? So this is how we can index or how we can iterate through the nested array. We have to use the same logic over here also. So I'll remove this logger now and we'll start the iterations so that we can go to or we can iterate through each element of this nested array, which is data, and then we can extract the particular element out of the array and then we can apply the condition on top of it. So we'll start with the for loop. For, I'll initialize my variable I with the value 0. The condition is if the I is less than the length of the data. So I is less than data.length. Remember, data is my array over here and length will return me the total number of elements that is held by this particular variable data. Then I need to declare the incrementer. So I is equal to I plus 1, or you can also say I plus plus. This is another way of declaring the same thing. Please remember, we do not need comma, we need semicolon, otherwise you will get error. Now we have to define the logic. So what logic we have to define? We have to first of all extract the value from the nested array. So variable m is equal to data I of 0. Now I hope you guys remember, this iterator will only change so that I can iterate from one element in my nested array to the another element. But within each nested array, I have to just extract the first element. That is the reason this parameter will not change, only this parameter I will change. Now we will write the condition. So if my condition is data I of 0 is not equal to empty. I hope you guys remember when I was doing logger.log data, you must have found out that there were so many empty elements in my nested array. Let me quickly show you. Logger.log data, and let's try to run it. Okay, so we haven't completed this, so I have to convert this into a comment, and now we can execute it. So here you can see that I'm having data for few elements, but for most of them it is empty. So what condition I have written over here? I'm saying if the element, when I'm extracting the particular element from the array data, if it is not empty, then I have to perform the operation, right? So that is the reason we have written this if condition. Now we will set the scope of this particular conditional block. Now we have to check if this particular value which we have extracted in the variable m, if it is less than 35, I have to designate false. If it is between 35 to 50, I have to designate the grade would be C, and so on. So let's write down that logic. If the value of m is less than 35, then I want over here, I should get in this particular column the corresponding row. So my row will be 2, column will be 2. Over here I should get the value false, or maybe the value that is my grade. So I'll say spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet dot get range I plus 2 comma 2. Now why I plus 2? Remember, my variable I was initialized as 0 and my data is available from row number 2. So that is the reason I plus 2, so that I can move to this particular row, and then column number 2. So that is the reason I have mentioned 2. Then dot set value as fail, because if the marks are less than 35, I need fail. Then the next condition is else if the marks are greater than 35 and the marks are less than, let's say marks are greater than or equal to 35 and the marks are less than 50. Then I'll copy the same code and put it over here. but here it would be grade C. Then we will again write else if the marks are greater than or equal to 50 and the marks are less than let's say 85, then we have to get the grade B. Now we will write the else condition. Else I need to get the grade A. And that is all what we have to do. So we are done declaring the complete function. Let's now try to save it and use this function over here is equal to if the function name was if L, and let's try to execute it. Okay, we have obtained error because of this extra m, so let me remove it. Let me save it again, go over here, enter. The parameter string comma name does not match method signature for a spreadsheet get range. Get range. Okay, so maybe the reason this is not working out is because we haven't terminated all the blocks, the coding blocks. Let's save it again, try to execute it again. Is equal to if L, again error, line number 25. So the reason this particular code is not working out even after we tried multiple times is because of this particular wrong code that we have used over here. It would not be get active spreadsheet, it would be get active sheet, because we already know in which sheet we are working on right now. So let's remove this spread sentence, spread word, and make it as active sheet, get active sheet. Even we can use get active spreadsheet, but we have to then in that case name the sheet also. So let's try to now save it, run it, execution completed, and here you can see that we are getting the values. Let me show you again. Let me delete all these things. Use the function is equal to if L, and here it is not working out. So let me run it, and here you can see that we are able to generate the values. So this is how you can see that like we haven't applied any kind of function, but we were able to directly generate the grades by just writing this Google app script. Now we will take one more example to understand how we can basically create summary metric for any given data. Like let's say if we want, given this particular data, we want to generate, let's say, the average, count, minimum, maximum. If we want all these summary metric without even worrying about writing any formula and automatically just by running this script, how we can do that? Let's write one more script for it. So I'll go over here and we will initiate the function with the name, let's say summary metric. We'll initiate the scope. Now the very first thing that we have to do is the same thing. So I'll just copy the code from here, and it would be exactly the same for these two lines because my data is present exactly at the same place. So nothing will change over here. Then this code block will also remain the same. So I'm just copying this code block so that I'm not mismatching my curly brackets. Then I'll copy this code block and even this code block. And again curly brackets. Now everything will remain the same till this point because we have to get the data. Now what additional thing we have to do? We have to generate some variables which can hold the values, the final outcome like average, minimum, maximum, count. So let's create some variables. We can declare variables over here. First variable is, let's say, average. Then another variable is count, which I am initializing to 0. Then we have variable max. Now as of now, we are basically assigning the variable max with the first value of my data, the first value that my data array is having. And I'll tell you the logic why we are doing something like this. So data 0 of 0. And for minimum also we are doing the same thing. Min is equal to data 0 of 0. Let's create one more additional variable TOT so that I can have the total value, and we will assign this to 0. The reason we are doing this thing is because for calculating average, we do not have any direct formula. We do have formula in the Google Sheets, but here we have to manually calculate average, and average is nothing but sum of all the observations divided by total number of observations. So in the variable TOT, we will hold the total of my data array, and in the count, we will have the total number of data points that we have in the array. So we have all the variables declared, and now we can initiate writing conditions for making calculations. So after each iteration, so I'm saying for I is equal to 0, we are initiating our iteration from I is equal to 0. If the variable I is less than the data length, increment the iterator. We are extracting the first value. Maybe we are extracting the value from each of the nested array. As you guys already know, we are initiated the condition. If it is not empty, then we'll first of all add total is equal to total plus m. So in the variable total, we are adding the value m. Here we should not use m. We can use data I of 0. Even we can use m also, but since we have declared m out of the condition, so let's use data I of 0. Now we have the total. Similarly, we can increment the count. Count is equal to count plus 1. And now we have to find out the maximum and minimum. If max is less than data I of 0, I'll place this condition in round brackets. Then my max variable will have the new data point, which will be I of 0. Else it will be nothing. The same thing we will do with min. If the min is greater than data I of 0, then my new minimum would be data I of 0, else we will not do anything. Now we have total, count, maximum, minimum, and now we are required to generate average, and here we will generate the average. Average is equal to total divided by count. Now we have all the, we have to come out of the loop. So we have all the metric created. Now all we have to do is make them visible in this particular spreadsheet. So let's say we have decided that I want the data or maybe the result to be displayed in this region, which is declared using column E and row 2. So we will copy this command. I'm saying spreadsheet app.get active sheet.get range. Now here my range will be, let's say, column E row 2. So row number 2, column E, and we will set the value as average. Corresponding to this, I want which will be row 2 comma, so this will be 2 comma E2. I want over here I want the value which is F2, so I'll write F, and instead of average we want AVG, which is my variable. Now I will copy this and I have to replicate this code for 3 more times. So this can be for count. So row number 3, here we will have count, and here also the variable count. Row number 4, here we can have the minimum value. Here we will have the variable min, and row number 5, here we can have the value max, and over here the variable max. Now we are done writing the complete code. Let's save it. Go over here, let's run it. Execution completed. Let's do one thing. Let's delete this particular code. Let's save it, run it. So attempted fail. Okay. Let's do one thing. Let's save it again. Now run it. Cannot convert E to integer. Okay, so here we have to declare the column number, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So here 5, here let's say 6, and this has to be done for all. 5, 6, 5, 6, 5 and 6. Let's save it. Let's run it. Completed, and here you can see we have the result. So my average is 62.25, count is 12, minimum is 32, which is correct, maximum is 100, which is correct. So you can see that how easy is to automate things using Google Script. Once you start using it, you might find it very easy, and you will definitely find it very easy because we have tried covering up all the basics that you require to master this particular scripting language. So that was all about this particular video. I hope you guys enjoyed and found this video really useful to start your journey with Google Apps Script. If you did, please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to share this video with all your friends. Please press the bell icon so you never miss any updates from us.